Hey, what's up, everybody? BDO 44 coming at you in another video. All right, so I have exactly 24 minutes to talk. Salute to Kobe before we even start. Today is his birthday, 23rd of August. Today would have been his 45th birthday. And we often want to send love and light to his family. Today is no exception, but on this day, we start this particular video with a salute to the great Black Mamba, Kobe Bryant. So that is what I want to do to start the video. Now, this isn't a Laker video, to be honest with you. I actually had a bunch of random stuff on my mind about James Harden and the Philadelphia 76ers and all that stuff. But I think where my mind actually goes is to the fine that he received, the $100,000 fine. What I actually expect at this point is for Adam Silver to now turn his attention to the Philadelphia 76ers and see if it makes sense to fine them as well. Daryl Morey, I tend to look at this conversation and I go above Daryl Morey's head, even though the subject of the situation is Daryl Morey. Whatever it is that James Harden expected Daryl Morey to follow through on, Daryl Morey would need somebody else's approval of those decisions in order to execute them, in my opinion, unless it's something off the court outside of business. But if it is what has been reported, which is that Daryl Morey made agreements with James Harden that he's reneging on, those agreements are not his to make. He's a GM, but it's not his money he's spending when he makes decisions. And if he doesn't make the right ones, he's no longer the GM. He gets fired. So I think that particular point is a tea leaf in my very unique mind that tells me the story, this story could potentially be exaggerated for our amusement. And I said that from the beginning. I always say I leave room for the cap. And I'm not saying this story is completely false. I'm just saying they're probably giving more to it to entertain and keep us occupied than what is probably actually was happening. I believe that. It's just small little pieces of the story that expose the possibility of extra being poured on, or even some other thing, like somebody stirring this up so that they can really do this, even though those parties don't necessarily know people are stirring this up. Yeah, it looks like this is manipulated a little bit. But then again, you guys know my brain is different, so I don't know anybody. No one talks to me. I'm just a guy looking at stuff from afar and taking what I see, and that's that. But I just don't generally think in this situation that it makes a whole lot of sense to only fine James Harden when the Philadelphia 76ers have obviously prompted James Harden to react. Unless James Harden is having some type of mental breakdown where he's manifesting things in his head that ain't true about people's character, something happened that provoked him to speak. And that something needs to be identified and, if proper, punished. That's really what it comes down to. Plus, we talk about repeat offenders in various different situations. The Philadelphia 76ers are a repeat offender. We just went through this with Ben Simmons last year. I don't think they handled it very well. I don't know how the NBA views it, so they may not see that as something that needed to be considered a first offense, but I do. They went through this. They ruined one of Joel Embiid's seasons with a decision that they made to not walk away from a position that they had in regards to Ben Simmons and them having the upper hand on Ben during the process of him trying to figure out his time away from basketball. They made that time where he was, dealing with his mental health and dealing with his back, for which he had surgery on, which nobody wants to talk about ever when assessing how well Ben's playing. They essentially allowed the season to go by the wayside so that they can engage in that battle that ultimately got them a return that ended up being this problem. That Ben Simmons debacle. People believe in what they believe in, right? Not everybody believes in the same mantras or spiritual stuff, but I truly believe that they're revisiting this James Harden thing because of how they handled the Ben Simmons thing. You got this problem not only as a quote-unquote karma for Ben Simmons nonsense, but you've sort of been And the word I use is typecast, but there's another way to apply this truth, which is people expect you to behave a certain way, so they go in with a certain mindset when they walk into the building. James Harden had saw what you guys did with Ben Simmons, so he was probably already on the defense about y'all lying to him about what it is that y'all said y'all was going to do, and probably knew that this would be a possibility if it didn't go right. And I think about where he was when he said Daryl Morey's a liar. He was in China. Them Chinese trips got to be booked months ahead of time. This ain't something that, you know what I mean, he just decided to get a flight. He knew where he would be before this lie was revealed to him to be whatever it was, a lie. You know what I mean? He knew that there was going to be an opportunity for him to bash Daryl Morey a long time ago. He probably had this in the tuck a long time ago. And I don't think you think, I'm not saying you, but James Harden would think, let me plan this out just in case they screw me over, if they hadn't just screwed somebody over. So I'm telling you, man, Philadelphia's ownership, dude, I don't know if they look at it as something they need to address as the NBA front office or the Silver. I don't know if he thinks he needs to address them or not. But, and I'm not going to compare them to, the Phoenix Suns before Sarver left or the Clippers, anything like that. It's not, they're not reacting up. It's just that the way that they handle their problems prioritizes their position on those problems rather than assessing whether or not the problem should be addressed in a fight for the betterment of their team. They prioritize their position in being taskmasters and disciplinarians rather than their task of building their best basketball team for their fans. And so that is where I come in. As a fan of the Lakers, I don't have that problem. I don't have no sharing any allegiances. If you follow me enough, you know that. But that doesn't stop me from speaking passionately about various teams that I feel aren't building the best possible way for the fans and for the players that they ultimately are showcasing. So for me, Philadelphia has neglected to build a great team around a great player. And that is a big problem. Joel Embiid is your reigning MVP. And he's been a contender for that trophy for about 3 or 4 years in a row. You picked up James Harden, who too has been an MVP candidate for pockets at a time of his career consecutively and won it as well. You got too much talent to be struggling as bad as you are. Your team's too good. And I don't sit here and say that the fit was great, but the asset class, if not for any of these problems, is very valuable, and you should be a good candidate to acquire whatever you want to trade for if you were that team. So Philly should not have these problems, and yet everything they're talking about, in every way it seems, based on what it is, the tea leaves I see, is showing me that they're not building properly. But they have the idea that they're supposed to be entitled to respect as if they are a championship team that's won 7, 8 rings. Like, Philly, you've never done anything right. No disrespect, but as a front office, there's very little good that you've done, man. Even to get the player Joel you had to tank like 4 years in a row, dudded on like 3 of those picks. I mean, your ratio for what it is that you were trying to do with the process, it only worked because Joel turned out to be who he is. It's the only reason why it even worked. Everything else you got was not either a part of that process or is Joel Embiid, basically, because nothing else was there. So it's like, it's just the stuff that they've been wanting to do. Doesn't lead to the team being very good. And then when the players are unhappy and react to that in whatever way they do, they don't handle it well. On top of not making good decisions. So for me, it's like the problem for the Sixers, as I said last night, and as I said many times about this team, is the operational prioritization there. They got to prioritize basketball and their cap situation and their player development situation more so than they value, policing players on their team and policing stuff that doesn't have anything to do with the responsibilities building the team. if the Philadelphia 76ers are the hub for the anti-player empowerment era, if that's like the place you go when you want to hover around to speak about how we don't want players to have power anymore, because that's what it looked like to me, then you got to understand that in doing so, you're not going to have players. If you're going to be standing against players as they are progressing in the process of also getting richer, what you're going to find out is that none of the players are going to want to deal with you. They're going to be going everywhere but you. And this is the problem that I think some of the owners are going to run into right now. A guy like Joe Tsai in Brooklyn. I was just thinking about him as I was assessing this team in Philly. That's another team that I'm not going to if I'm a player. Now, if I'm a guy like Mikal Bridges, I'll sign you a $260 million contract if you want to give it to me. But you're probably not going to get me for anything less than that. I'm not taking no discounts to make your life easy. And see, that's what it is I was trying to help the Nets understand last year when they were going through what they were going through with Kyrie. It's like, yeah, you can be taskmasters against the players. You could police the players. You could tell them they need to stay in line no matter what, and that is important, that you're not going to take it. And I listen to a lot of analysts, and they take that position too. We're not going to take it against these players. And it's like, yeah, that's fine that you guys are so staunch in making sure that you understand your position, and others do too as well, that you are quote unquote the boss. But bosses have to understand that it takes currency to keep people attached to you. If you're not providing the currency that makes it make sense, hence the James Harden lie situation, if you're not going to pay dudes what it is they feel they deserve, then you're going to be on the wrong side of them. And if you're on the wrong side of them, you got to handle that a certain way. You understand what I'm saying? You can't just, I'm the man, regardless of what it is that we talking about. I'm more intelligent than you. I'm paying your money. You run around and that's it. Like nobody's doing, they're not going for that because they don't have to. These guys are rich. 1-2 contracts are rich. They don't have to do it. So if you're going to do that, and mind you, this is a conversation I was listening to as well. I'm kind of taking a little bit from Gilbert Arenas, salute. But like, if you're going to go down this route, then you got to understand that there is a player association on the other side of that. We often talk about the players. Oh, these players only got a short amount of time to be in the league. Got to hurry up and get the most out of themselves before they go. And that is factual for the specific player. But for what it is that the owners are up against in regards to the players and the representatives, no, that's not getting replenished as quickly as the players are being replenished. And so when you're going to take certain stances against the players, whether the player specifically, that person that you're going against, is right or wrong, you need to understand that those stances that you're taking are going to reflect on you. So if you don't do what the players can respect in being a taskmaster, and if you're going to treat people the way they think is unfair, then they're going to avoid you when it's time for them to move from the places they're at going forward. And the Players Association is going to be the mainstay regardless of the player that you had a problem with retiring or not. There's going to be new players that are going to be represented by the same league, the same representation, Players Association. It's going to have those pointers in mind when negotiating with you, owners, going forward. And so it's like, you can't just say I'm the man, say you're going to fall in line and that's it, because you are dealing with a union, a union that's going to react to all of that. So that's why I don't like what Philly did. That's why I don't like what Brooklyn did. It's like, if you're going to be taskmasters, don't be buck breakers. Okay? Take the temperature in the room. 75 to 80% of your league is black. Come on now. Just read the temperature. We don't like being treated like we're lesser. We don't like thinking that you want us to think we're lesser, especially when it's a give and take. You give us money, we take our time playing the game that you want us to play throughout the rigors of that long-ass schedule you want to give. That is what it is. So, as I look at this James Harden situation, I say, Philly need to be careful, because the Players Association is looking at you again. They're looking at you. And when it's time for the Wembanyamas and everybody else to be free agents, you know where they're likely not even going to glance at? You, Philadelphia, you. And your fans suffer for it. And that's the problem. It's always the people that don't have no say-so in what happens that suffer the most in the league. That's the problem. That's why I've used my voice in the way that I have for my own squad. Because I was seeing stuff the Lakers was doing that I didn't want to pay for. Straight up. This stuff, as a fan, I love my team so very much. I even got basketball. I got the Laker pants on, y'all. I'm not playing. But there were Laker teams that I could not watch. They were so bad and so uninspired that they were not watchable. And so for a diehard fan like myself, that's when I take the energy that I watch a team with and get on camera and talk about the team and tell every single body that will watch me, this is what I think is going wrong. This is what I think will get us better. And this is what will get us to the top. And coincidentally, all of the things that I've been talking about for the last 3 years, my team has incorporated into their situation. And right now we are where I dreamed we would be 3 years ago. Do I think I have something to do with that? Probably not. But it doesn't matter. The point is that is what fans are going to do now. We're going to suggest what it is that we see. Hopefully we're credible enough. Hopefully we know what the hell we're talking about. And hopefully the team will understand what it is that we would desire to pay for. And that's what it's about. So I'll tell you what I'm not paying for. I'm not paying for another year. And this is the two sides of this. I'm not paying for another year James Harden and $50 million to run around and disappear in the finals, playoffs. I'm not doing it. That's what I'm not doing. So I'm with Philly on that. However, I'm also not going to bring him to my situation, hire his GM, and then tell him I'm going to do some things that I have no intention of doing. And when it doesn't work out, I blame him. I'm not doing that either. I don't want to pay for that if I'm a fan. I'm not paying for that either. So these are the type of things. It's like, yo, Philly, get together, bro. I'm telling you right now, as a fan, the only thing I would want you to do, owner, sell the team. That's it. That's it, bro. Put it up for sale, please. Seriously. This ain't even about nothing else other than we want somebody in place that's going to prioritize being able to work with players for the betterment of the franchise so we don't have to suck because of what it is you're choosing. No more. No more. It's time for the guys who don't have the ability to make the decisions to stop suffering for the decisions of those who are privileged enough to make them. Enough. If you don't have building the team in mind and working with the personalities necessary to see that your team is built properly, or envisioning the right type of people to bring around you so that they can fall in line with the plans that you have for yourself. If you're going to bring people in to oppose you, do not get mad when the fight occurs. You started it. And just because our great friend Adam Silver is not seeing it that way yet, it seems, it does not mean that he's not responsible for holding Philly and Harden accountable for their positions on this situation. And that he's neglected to do that is not the greatest thing in the world to me. It's not. And I just want to take a couple seconds because I only got a few to speak. 24 minutes to talk, 17 in. But what I want to tell people is this. Adam Silver, this is the second time I've looked in Adam Silver's direction and asked for him to do better. The first time was with the Kyrie Irving situation. I thought, and this is just my own personal observation and belief, I thought his personal point of view on what Kyrie was doing bled into his decision on how to address Kyrie in discipline. I'm a black dude. I'm sitting up here talking for the betterment of my folks. So I'm not going to look at a Jewish man and say, don't stand up for your people. When somebody offends you, you got a right to stand up, no different than I would when I speak. But this is what I say. When you're in a position of great responsibility, like Adam Silver, you can't let those biases bleed into how you handle the circumstance because that's the first thing people like myself are going to look at. That's the first thing. And it's not to say that he hasn't shown me enough to say that he respects black folks. We went through a whole Black Lives Matter movement. He was the commissioner at the time. I felt pretty strongly about that, even though I had greater thoughts about the whole campaign. At the end of the day, the NBA fell in line in solidarity. So it seemed that was good enough for the times. We needed that. Adam was a part of that, and I give him his credit. But when it comes to Kyrie Irving, Hebrews to Negroes, and the whole post there, and in the process of coming down on Kyrie in various meetings and all that stuff, I thought Adam Silver was just another antagonist in the story, man. He wasn't helping. He didn't help me feel better about what it is I saw in that video, which helped me enlighten myself to understand that maybe lies have been told about certain things. Never addressed that. I ain't expecting the NBA to address that, but I certainly don't expect Adam Silver, a representative of the people that in the circumstance, the conversation, would then turn around and be offended without without acknowledging this aspect of it. Like, yo, some truths may have been released, and maybe this is the path for which we're supposed to get it. Maybe that should be something you just kind of go like this about. Not just because of this personalization of the circumstance and how it looks, but because of the fact that there is some confusion about what it is that was delivered to us and whether or not it should be considered offensive. Like I said, that's a bigger conversation the NBA should probably want to champion or trailblaze. But at the same time, it is a position of 75% of your league as it pertains to them being black. Not necessarily their opinion, but just saying it would affect them if they were. So this is what I'm saying to you. At the end of the day, all I want is to see teams get themselves in a position to where the players can freely and righteously come play for you, get what it is they're supposed to be paid, and hopefully retire in your uniform. A lot more Dirk Nowitzki's, Kobe Bryant's, Tim Duncan's is needed, man. You know, Devin Booker's, guys look like they're on their way to spending their whole career in one spot. This is what it is that I want to see. I'm willing to pay for it. It's hard to do that when people have their own opinions about what they want to do. Guys want to live where they want to live. Value isn't understood to be the same amongst everybody when it comes to how I see myself. I'm not probably looked at the same way as someone else would look at me or whatever. But the point is, it shouldn't be as difficult to get guys into positions to succeed and fit in all these different things in the NBA. And it definitely shouldn't be as difficult to just look at two sides of a coin and make sure that you're balancing out what it is that needs to be given to both parties in regards to whatever discipline that needs to be done. And so I think that we could get better at that. I'm poised to wait for the NBA to investigate the Philadelphia 76ers and then determine whether or not a fine is necessary. Because I don't expect for them to investigate James Harden and then fine both teams, which is what would have looked good, but doesn't necessarily make sense. You got to investigate better than that. Now, you could wait until the full investigation is done and then bring down the suspensions on both parties, which is probably a better way to deliver that. And it shows that their priorities is to stand with the owners when they do it this way. And I think that that priority is going to backfire on them because, like I said, there's a player association that you have to do business with. And if you continue to prioritize one side over the other, there's going to be reaction to that is not going to be positive. And so that's what I keep telling all of us. If we're going to, I don't know how to word this, but you just can't be biased. You can't be biased of race. You can't be biased of sex. You can't be biased of anything. We're talking about the NBA, so it's obviously going to be a bunch of dudes, but you can't let, oh, they talk about my folks? Oh, in that case, yeah, we coming down on them. I don't want to hear what he got to talk about. I don't care what he talking about. That can't be the stance if you're the leader. And that's an easy one to jump to, trust me. Somebody say the N-word, I'm in Adam Silver's position, I probably don't want to hear too much. In regards to context, and I don't want you offending my people. I get that. Not only do I get that, but I stand in solidarity with that. But when you find out that Kyrie's intentions is not to do that and that there's more to learn about the situation and you already jumped out the window, say this, and this, and then you find out the temperature ain't positive in regards to pointing at you because of it, I think it's one of those situations where maybe you do take your time with James Harden. Maybe you don't suspend him right away. So that's what we're looking at. They didn't suspend him, but they did fine him $100,000. And I just don't know that just a big fine is due to the Philadelphia's ownership for whatever they allowed to happen with Daryl Morey. And you can find Daryl Morey if it makes you feel any better, but he's not in control of himself. And that's the point. If he told lies, then it should be his bosses that fire him for doing so. Other than that, simple fine will do, I think. EDL 44. I'll take you off watching.